Hello there, and welcome back. Now, today, we are talking about a topic very, very close to my heart. You see, I was browsing Twitter, like the usual twat that I am, and I saw a notice, a little bubble pop up that Fender had announced the custom shop limited edition run of a Joe Strummer Telecaster alongside an acoustic guitar. So I thought, okay, what's going on here? Why would they do this now? What does this signify? And fuck me, it signifies the release of Assembly, an album which puts together some of the best snippets of Joe Strummer's solo career with some new production on it and just overall just a high quality remastering of the tracks, and it is fucking great. Like, yeah, I love it. And let me stop you right there. If you're there questioning, Fred, in all the shit that you chat constantly here on the channel, we're fine with sitting back and listening to you to talk about Led Zeppelin, Greta Van Fleet, The Pretty Reckless, Billy Gibbons, Wolfgang Van Halen, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. But on what grounds are you qualified to even put your name next to the great late Joe Strummer? Well, I would like to point out that I am standing here with my lovely, although minute, but still lovely nonetheless, little record collection, and have arranged it in a lovely and tasteful little wall for you, just to prove that I am in fact cool and with the times.
Yes, I am.
I believe on these grounds my musical taste is in fact on par. And on these grounds and for these reasons, I would like to talk about Assembly. And before we leave, please do consider to subscribe down below if you've enjoyed myself up to this point, my spicy, fascinating locks, or my attempt to provide some facial hair to this mix, because that Billy Gibbons video really made me feel like I'm lacking in that area. I think I speak for everyone that Joe Strummer and The Clash as a whole are just such a profoundly impactful band on all of us, really. I mean, in the UK, they're known as the only band that matters, for fucking crying out loud. And in my own private listening experience, The Clash are just one of those bands which very deceptively always finds their way in my top 3 listen to artists every single year for the past like 5 years. My mom's a massive fan, I'm a massive fan, and there's just some innominate thing about the way that Joe Strummer and Mick Jones come together to create catchy, fun, and unforgettable little guitar riffs paired with some really easy to sing along with, impactful melodies and lyrics, which all together, in their ability to touch on social issues and to break down barriers and speak to everyone, made The Clash such a great fucking band. Especially because they basically are one of the bands who created punk alongside the Sex Pistols and alongside all that great movement. I think of Joe Strummer, I think of The Clash, I think of speaking for oneself and being creative in the purest sense of the word. So when I heard that there was a new little collection of his solo work, I was for sure interested. You see, for me specifically, in my listen through of all these wonderful songs, a lot of them were new to me. Some I knew, but some I didn't. So even though this isn't necessarily new work, it's still interesting because I find that Joe Strummer's solo career wasn't as recognized as perhaps it should have. And in order to inform myself, to properly give you some opinions, which I'm happy with and I think could be cool, I read up on the album. I read some reviews, and everyone seems to be happy with it, but I'm noticing a lot of concerns, and I've noticed that some critics have decided that because Mick Jones doesn't appear in the album to offset Joe's creative impulses, that this album somehow lacks substance. I'm not necessarily quoting verbatim, but that's the vibe that I got. That's a feeling that I get with regards to the album. And if you'll pardon my French, I think this is just a steaming load of horse shit. God damn, that sounded sassy. Fuck. I'm sorry, I'm not normally that sassy. I'm not in any way a master of sass. But it appears that I am. But let me put a disclaimer right here, right now, that this new work of Joe Strummer, yes, we're definitely going to have to compare it to The Clash. We're definitely going to have to look at the previous work. because Joe Strummer is one of the creative minds behind The Clash. So I do believe that a certain level of comparison between this work and The Clash is well warranted. We get to see two different sides of this creative genius's interpretation and exploration and expression. But that Mick Jones bullshit and looking at this album as any less valuable because Mick Jones isn't involved, to me doesn't sound appropriate. And I think Mick Jones would agree as well. Dumbing things down for a moment, I've noticed that there's a great criticism going on where people believe and people think that Joe Strummer's solo career doesn't meet or doesn't match up very well to all the body of work that preceded him in The Clash. And this assertion that Mick Jones is the main reason, and the fact that he's not involved in this project and all his solo work is maybe a reason why it shouldn't merit enough attention or the same level of prestige or fond memories that we do have with The Clash, it's just mind-boggling to me. Joe Strummer and The Clash and Mick Jones as well, they spoke out and they played their music independently of what people thought. They played it for the sake of creativity and for the sake of expressing themselves. And that's what kind of drove me nuts and made me want to record my thoughts about this video. I like to see Assembly as an unfiltered insight into the mind of a creative genius. And it's so cool to hear all these little musical influences which don't come across in The Clash. Here you get vibes from Spanish music, reggae, punk as well, folk in a way, a bit of blues, a bit of classic rock and roll, and it all comes together in a very elegant collection of music. And from the first title track, Coma Girl, all the way back to Yala Yala and some of those more out there and weird 7-minute tracks that are evidently a bit more experimental than others. You know, this is just him singing his music, being cool, and yeah, we don't need to compare it to The Clash. Like, it's his own music. And now that we pointed out the fallacy of the line of argument in trying to compare this collection of music to his previous body of work, and the connotations of bastardization of the creativity and freedom of expression of this wonderful, wonderful artist, let's quickly look at a couple of tracks just to give some substance to what I'm saying. Coma Girl is a lovely, lovely track, and I understand that this is probably one of the most popular songs on this album. The core of the song, the riff, sounds a bit like I Fought the Law, but here he spices it up. You can definitely hear that it's just a completely unfiltered version of Joe Strummer. There's a bit of a more classical, in a way, influences in the melodic choices with regards to lead guitar, which in the bridge goes into a reggae vibe with that sort of strum on the offbeat. And then you have these little cascading lead notes in a higher register to offset everything, which in a modern context remind me a bit of Blink-182. So, you know, then it makes me want to think, how did they maybe hear some of this music when they were young, and that inspired them to come up with their own albums? Perhaps. Probably. Nonetheless, is this song fucking cool? You betcha it is. Moving on, there's a little song, Johnny Appleseed, which reminded me a little bit of Straight to Hell, but this time without all the effects and all the bells and whistles that came with it on the Clash's library of music. And it also comes with an entirely different perspective on this style of song. It's a lot more folky. It has what to me sounds like a mandolin chugging along in the background, and it's so interesting to hear a lighter, less distortion driven Joe Strummer, and it's all fucking cool. And the rest of the album again carries on in a similar vein, where there's a lot of songs that sound like some of the Clash's previous work, but you just hear all these new nuances and influences that come from other realms of music going into it. So yeah, this album is going to stay with me for a long time. I am going to try my best to pick its brains and look into it as much as possible. But yeah, I'm so happy to hear this release. If I could fucking afford it, I would definitely get my hands on that Joe Strummer Telecaster, because it is so sexy. But that's not going to happen. That being said, thank you very much for tuning in. I've had so much fun listening into this album, and again, it's a very dear topic to my heart, so I hope you enjoyed my opinions and my thoughts on the album itself. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please consider subscribing down below. But all in all, stay classy, my internet people.